So once you get everything we've talked about so far in, you can add the dimensions and the text. When you put in the text, remember I'm going to want it to be left aligned, which means basically at the left side here. If the notes are close to if the notes are close to each other, they need to be in that same alignment all the way down. Also, the multi-leaders should be at the same angle. In other words, this angle should be the same. The easiest way to do that is create one and just copy it. The roof pitches themselves, which is a multi-leader and a text. Remember, you're going to have to match the roof angle here, and with multi-leaders, that's a bit of a trick within itself. But it should be it's all on A elevation and O. You do with a multi-leader. You know, if you got your object snaps on, you could start out like this, but it'll probably flip around some other direction, even if you do enter it in escape. So you'll probably have to grab it again and rotate it back around, and just, you know, you can tell pretty much when it's in alignment with the other line and select it and then escape. And then you could take that and you might be able to modify that down a little bit. It doesn't really need to be that long. Sometimes it'll let you do it, sometimes it will not. In this particular case, it's not going to let me do it, so I'm going to try it from the other direction. Just not going to do it. So I'm okay if that's the best you can do. I think I probably drew a line or something and got mine a little bit shorter. The text also needs to be at that same angle. You might do that by rotation. If you go to properties, there's one called rotation here, which is 326 there. That if you list the line, you're going to get 146, so it's going to be a derivative of that. So if you take what was it? What did it say it was over here? If this is 146, it's either 90 or 180 or 270. One of those is going to add up to that same angle. Sometimes you can actually put the text in by just following the line. That's probably the easier way to get the text at the right angle. Multi-leaders you just had to fight with. So you could put in the text. And then move it. Shouldn't be right on top of the multi-leader. That would be good. Then you can copy that, mirror it, and whatever. Getting it in to begin with is always tricky. Point being that it needs to match the angle on the roof. These of course are just vertical, and you make sure you're noting the 2 and 12 for the porch roofs and the 8 and 12 for the other roofs. Besides that, these are benchmarks. Put those in, obviously at the eighth of an inch scale. Put them in model space. You're going to find those under an insert. Make sure you're in world when you do this, otherwise it may come on upside down or backwards. It's going to be under annotations. It's called elevation benchmark. And it's going to come in looking like this. You'll need to move those into place. There's one at the first floor finished floor and one at the second finished floor, and then they should be aligned with each other. And then that line itself goes all the way through. the elevation to the other side, add finished floor, and you drag it by selecting it and just dragging the arrow. So, and then of course just double clicking on this. Elevation is, that's going to be like level 1 FFE, which stands for finished floor elevation. And the height in this case is 0, 0 because we're at the first floor, but if the second floor would be 10, 1, you just copy it up to the finished floor. So those are benchmarks. They're out of the annotations. They belong on A elevation anno. Run the roof plan real quick. So on the roof plan, again, got to be in the direction of which way the rain is flowing. And you need to note the second floor plate height and the first floor plate heights, and there are a few dimensions here and there. Make sure that when you put the text in that you're not putting it right on top of the line here. That doesn't read very well because that white line's pretty thick. Make sure you're a little bit off of the line, not too far, but a little bit. So basically you just got to note it and put the beams in. I think we did that before though. So you're adding the text and maybe a couple of dimensions here and there. And then there's some general notes down here that are just text. Alright, once you get all that done, you'll have all this in your drawing. So all model layers on and thawed. So this is all layers on, all layers thawed. Make sure if you put it in an area layer that you turn it off so you don't print it or don't see it, either one. I'm not sure I've got one in here. So, but if you do have one, you need to turn it off. Alright, so right now we've just got the first floor and the second floor layouts from what we've already done. We need to add the elevations. It's done in a specific way because of the views that we used. We're still going to start with creating from here, but before we do that, and this is only temporary, it's just to create these layouts, we're going to change the UCS follow back to 0, and it's just temporary. Alright, so now we're going to come back to like the second floor, right click, go to move or copy, and then we're going to say create a copy, move to end, say OK, and then I believe it's southeast and northwest if I remember correctly. So this first one here is going to be southeast, so we're going to rename it SE for southeast, but it's going to have two different viewports on it. So we're going to actually, don't delete the drawing, just delete the viewport in paper space. Alright, then we're going to set this to our viewport layer, which is XVP off. And then we're going to, while we're here in the layout, come up to this layout tab, come back over here to layout viewports and the down arrow here, select to horizontal, and then this is the one that's bounded right now, so we want to change that current view to south, and this one, select that one, and then change that one to east, and say OK, and then you draw just like a normal viewport from one side to the other. But it's going to give us two viewports. If it worked, then this upper one should orient the front view in that direction, and this one should orient the, go back to paper space here for a minute, yeah, the east view. Alright, in both cases we're going to need to set the scale to 1/8 of an inch. Where is it? There it is. Alright, that's pretty much off the page. I need to back out a little bit so I can see what's going on. There we go. Now I'm going to go back to model. Try to line this up a little bit better. Don't want to go beyond the viewport. Lock the scale. You do the same thing up here. Change it to 1/8 of an inch. Where is it? There it is. Need to move that up. Make sure I've got a room for the title. Lock it. Alright. And like any other viewport, you would need to go back in and clean the layers up. So we go back to the home ribbon. And while looking in the model, we're going to change the viewport freeze. Leave the model layers alone, but in the viewport freeze, what you'll want to do is freeze everything. Come back and set 0 as a control layer. Set it to current, and then come back down to your A elevation layers. All those, and do the same thing for the other viewport because it's 2 separate viewports. Select all, freeze them all. Set 0 is current. It didn't stay frozen. Okay, then come back down to the elevation layers. Go back to paper space and start moving these things around to wherever they need to be. That's probably too close, so I'm going to move it down, maybe move it over a little bit. I'd have to look at the handout to know exactly. Then, as long as you're in paper space, you can copy that title up to here as well. And then at that point, you can go change your titles. That's detail 1, this will be detail 2 on the sheet, and this will be the east elevation. View 2. And then you would have to change this over here. The southeast is going to be a 2.1. And this is going to be south ampersand and east elevations. If you don't abbreviate, it won't fit. Okay. All right. So that's it set up. And if you want to print, of course, like before, right click, go to plot. Always make sure this is set to 1417 CTB, otherwise the line weights are not going to be correct, 3218. Because we already set a lot of this stuff up in the original layouts, it's already defaulting to the right stuff. Then you can do a preview and it should look something like this. And then you could plot it. I'm not going to, but you could. Alright, so once you get all that set up, then you can create the other one. Unfortunately, you can't just change the viewports on the next one because this was specifically set up for the south and east views. So you got to do the same thing for the north and west views. But we'll still take that one and start with it and say move or copy. Move to end, create a copy. That's critical that you can check that. Okay. Then we'll change the name to Northwest. NW. And don't erase the drawing, but in paper space, erase the viewport. And in this case, we'll do what we did before. We're going to set this back to XVP off and do the same thing that we did before. Layout, drop down to horizontal, except this time it's going to be north, and the lower one's going to be west, again with the one large rectangle to create 2 viewports. Then double click in here, kind of center it out, come back down here, set it to scale, 1/8 inch, pan it to get it in the right place. If you scroll it, you'll change the scale, so if you pan, you can keep the same scale, and then lock it. Do the same thing down here, kind of move it up a little bit, make sure you're at the right scale, pan that up a bit, make sure you don't get into your beyond your viewport. Go back to paper space here for a second. Okay, so that's probably okay. I'm going to go back looking in the model space now. Again, go back to your home ribbon, the layer properties, in the viewport freeze, freeze everything, select all, freeze, set 0 as your control, set it current, and then come back to your elevation layers. All those. Do the same thing for down here, clicking in the model. All the elevation layers, and then in paper space you can go back and change it to the correct reading to north and west. This would also be north and west, and this sheet is going to be a 2.2. So you remember the exterior elevation tags on the first and second floor plans that were referencing the detailed number and the sheet number? Well, we just put it on this sheet with the correct detail numbers and sheet. Alright, so XVP off should be on a non-print layer, and again the same thing, plot, continue to plot, then you could preview it to make sure it looks like it's supposed to, and go print it if you needed to. Alright, now the roof plan of these three is the easier one, because on that one we can go back to the second floor plan and say move or copy, create a copy, move to the end, okay. Then we can go back to this and rename it roof. This time we'll look at back, since we've already got a viewport, we just need to change the layers. So we're going to freeze the A2 layers. That layer shouldn't be on either. Alright, so, and then this is the roof plan, so we don't need any of that. I've got some extra layers here. Alright, anyway, you would freeze everything, come back and basically follow the roof layers. 0 should be set to current. And then all you need to do then is just update again the title of the sheet. The sheet number, which I think without looking is a 1.3, and this will read roof plan there. So again, right click, plot 1417, preview it to make sure it looks right, and then you can come back and plot it. So with all model layers on and thawed, if you've controlled everything in the first and second floor layers, as you add layers, they will add to existing viewports. So in the first floor here, sometimes you'll see maybe layers you shouldn't see, but we've got everything looks like it's okay right now. I don't see that it added anything yet, so we're okay there. So I did not run a layer state ever for that. This has nothing to do with layer states. This all has to do with the viewport freeze, because in model space, as you can see, everything is on and thawed. So we added all three of these. We had to do it by using the views that we set up. And that's how that's done.